morning. I wanted to come on this morning and do just a little tutorial or explanation of how I do my tags for the Birds and Blooms book. This is one of those things that the book's gonna have in it, so I wanted to give you an idea on how I did it. The first thing we're going to do is, I'll put those aside. I start out with some sort of tag board. You could use cereal box, or I'm trying to think. This happens to be the lid to the raspberry tea box. We use a lot of this tea here at the house, and so it makes a perfect size tag. And I save the lids. Now I don't save the whole box just because I get enough of the lids to make this nest, you know. I'm going to put a little, first I trim it up square, obviously, and then I put a little gesso on the cardboard, because I will leave this side blank to write on. And this is just inexpensive gesso that I got at Hobby Lobby. It really doesn't matter, some white paint. The thing is that this bright red is a little bit, it's apt to show through. So I just get a little gesso on there. There's quite a bit of water in my brush. It just takes it down just a little bit so that it doesn't come through any of my other layers. And that's all I really care about, is just knocking back how bright that is. So once I've got it gessoed, I let it get dry. Let's get this out of the way. Oh, I guess I should have told you some of the things that we needed for the project. The cardboard that's gessoed. We're going to use some napkin pieces, and I've already cut out a few of them. Here's our cardboard that's gesso. We're going to use some book pages, and this is a very old book. Let me put it back over here. The poor thing is just as sad as can be, and the pages are actually very brittle. They have to be supported by something, or they just kind of fall apart. So we're going to use those. And then we're going to use some images out of this bird book that I have, and I have cut out. Okay, so let's just set that on the floor. But after we get our cardboard gessoed and dried, we can either trim it into a tag shape or leave it square. And when I trim one into a tag shape, let's move that out of the way, I simply take my scissors, angle that cut like that, and then I flip it over and I take this little piece and I cut this one off, and that way I get the same size on both pieces. Now if I want to round my corners, I go ahead and do it now. And I think this one we're just gonna make square. Rectangular, however you want to call it. We'll just do these two today because we're going to have to set them aside to get dry too. So once I do this part, I get out my Mod Podge. And I use Mod Podge. It's a matte Mod Podge. And I water it down just a little bit so that it's a little bit thinner than it comes out of the container. I buy a big half-gallon container, and it gets a little stiff. So I water it down a little bit. And we're going to use a brush. And I take my book page and I just put on some Mod Podge just like so. Now you want to make sure you get it spread all over the book page where you're going to put the tag, but it does not have to be real thick. And we're just going to lay this on like so. Oops. Try to make it a little bit straight. And I like to take a little plastic card and just do that. We'll set that one aside for just a second and do the other one. Oh, I should have looked. Yeah, okay. And you notice that it doesn't, I'm not worrying about the edges because I don't really want the white part of, or the blank edge to be on my tag anyways. And if you're altering a book, you will have pages that you've torn out to make room for your embellishments. So those pages work real well for this step. Let's switch them out. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tear off the excess. All the way around. And I suppose if you're really worried about it, you could save this, but I do not. I have enough book pages that I don't try to save that. And I don't worry terribly about the little pieces that are off the edge. And now you see I've got my tag, and I do a little quick run across it like that. And I'm going to set that one aside and we'll tear this one off. And I really like the fact that when you tear it off that way, it gives you this little rough, kind of torn edge, kind of vintagey, kind of worn. And again, I'm just going to smooth it down. Okay, now we're ready to put our images on there. And we have some different my brain just went on a vacation. We have some little thin pieces of napkin. Now when you use napkin to do collage, you want to make sure that you have taken off any excess layers, that all you have is the top printed layer. And I'm going to just put some Mod Podge on here, lay my napkin design on there. And cover it with Mod Podge. You notice I left that edge hanging over. I don't really want it on my design, but I'm not going to worry about it right now. We'll let it get dry. Okay? Now we're going to set this one aside to get dry. And I'm going to clean up the Mod Podge I got all over my mat. And we'll do this one. Okay, now I don't want this straight edge, so I will be putting it up high, down low enough that that edge comes off the bottom here. And again, we're just going to spread some Mod Podge. That's an awful lot that I got on there. And you notice I'm coating the whole tag. It does help to protect the book paper that is so fragile. And if you get a little wrinkle or two, that's okay. I happen to like the wrinkles. You do want to make sure that you get a good coat of Mod Podge on the top of your napkin. And again, we're going to leave that and just set it aside to dry. And I'm going to put my Mod Podge back under cover so that it's put away. And clean up my mat. And I have pre-made a few tags with those steps done. We want to make sure that it's good and dry before we go on. Now this excess pieces here that I told you could just leave hang off, you can just tear off. And there again, those little pieces let you have sort of a, it's stuck to my fingers because I have a little bit of Mod Podge on my fingers. It just gives me a little bit more of that torn, worn edges. Now once the napkin gets Mod Podge on it, it's a little more sturdy, so it takes a little bit more to tear it off. And we have some tags ready to work on. Now we want to make some little embellishments. And I had that bird book and I took out some pages. I have some little pieces of birds cut from them. I also have one I wanted to punch out specifically to do on the cardinal page, and I want to punch it out with a circle punch. And my circle punch does not work very well, but I usually use it upside down. And I have this one, and I want to get close enough. Can I get there? No, I cannot. So I have to cut this piece off a little bit. And there's okay. So we have several images we can play with. And what I like to do is to glue them to a piece of book page and tear out around the images so that the book page has it makes another layer for your embellishments. So let's set these cards aside. And I usually use this Mono Aqua glue from Tumbo for this kind of thing. It dries clear, it's easy to put on. I am not real fond of glue stick. For some reason I make a mess with a glue stick. For this particular spot you probably could use a glue stick. And I'm gonna stick that on there. You notice I have lots of book pages, so I am just giving myself lots of room around these pieces. And if I don't use them all on this particular let's do this tiny little one. Set of tags, and they'll come up handy in our book. And you're going to want to make some tags to go in your altered book. Okay, so we have those few glued on. I'll probably glue the other two in a minute, but then I'm going to start tearing these out, and I just give myself oh, 1/4 of an inch or so. I don't make it real big. And it doesn't have to be the exact shape. I just roughly tear these out. There again, it's just another layer to add to your embellishments. Yeah, I have to tear from the edge. Okay. You do end up with lots of little pieces of paper everywhere. Now that little guy, okay, there he is. Now it's going to stay. It didn't want to stay very well. Okay. And once I have my little embellishments made, I'm going to ink around the edges of the book page, and I'm using Distress ink. It's called Gathered Twigs. It just happens to be a nice brown that I have in my stash. And I just ink around the embellishments. This ages them. It makes them stand out a little more. I will also ink all around the edges of our tag. There again, it's just defines the edge. It just gives it a nice little look. Oops, I've got hold of 2 tags. No wonder it's not working very well. Okay. Let's just finish this one and go on. Now, at this point in time, you could also hole punch. Oh dear, my hole punch has gotten up and left home. Well, normally I would hole punch that. Aha. Sorry about that. If I hole punch it right now, I kind of know where the hole's going to be for my ties. And should I put my embellishment a little high, then I have an idea of where my hole punch is. I don't think it's going to get very high on this one. I'm thinking I'm going to use both of these little embellishments on this one. But they need something behind them to give them a little bit more definition, layer off of the off of the tag. So we have some options. Okay. Option number 1 got up and left. Boy, things are leaving today. Well, we'll just work with this. I have fibers. And fibers are really fun to add to your tags to give it just a little bit of pizzazz. And I think we're going to just add the little bit of gold because I happen to like the gold with the cardinal. I'll probably use a little bit of this gold in its tie. So what we're going to do is we're just going to cut a couple of pieces off just to see what we want. We don't want a lot. Okay, you see how it just adds that little bit, and I'm not even sure I want him sticking out. Maybe I'll just curl it up like so. Oh yes, I like that very much. Okay, so we're going to curl them up. I kind of turned the little fiber into the center fiber into a circle. I'll curl it up like so. It's attaching itself. And I'll put my little tags over the top of my little embellishments over the top, and it just adds that little bit of sparkle and layer to my tag. Now to do this, you want to get a decent amount of glue in here. And unfortunately, my glue bottle is about empty, I guess. Now you could use something like tacky glue. I just happen to like this one. It gives me a lot of options with the tiny little applicator. And I am going to just glue this down. And glue this one down. I'm going to go ahead and finish this tag by adding a little bit of fiber to the top for the handle on it. Sometimes when you have fibers underneath, you have to hold your little embellishments down a little bit. So we'll just leave them sit there for a minute while we cut off a couple of pieces of fiber. And I think this time, since we've got the gold sparkle, we're just going to use a piece of this, if I can find the end. That's always the complicated part. Well, if we can't find an end, I guess we will just make ourselves one. Yep. Oh, there's the end. So we're just going to take a couple of pieces of this. Set it aside. And I just fold the yarns or fibers in half. I bring those two folded places through the hole. And slip it out. Now, we have finished one tag. Okay, now let's do one more. And I think this one may be just a little small. I think we'll go for this little bird head. It also gives it a little contrast, so I'm going to need to glue it down. I now have fibers everywhere. I'm sorry, I don't mean to get off camera here. Okay. And once again, we're just going to tear it out. Okay, that's a little big. Excuse me. And I'm going to ink up my edge. And I just found the other thing I wanted to layer. It must have blown off from the fan. It's on the floor right beside me. So we will see if a piece of it won't be fun. This is the mesh stuff that they make. What is it that they make? They make wreaths out of it. And I have a big roll of it, and I like it to make little pieces underneath things to just give this another sort of dimension. I think it's a little too big. Here we go. But I also think it needs a little tiny bit of fiber. But I have the gold from the mesh, so I think I'll use a little bit of this fiber that's kind of got a silver gray cast to it. It's actually kind of variegated. Okay, yep, I kind of like that. Remember, we want to get a good amount of glue around our fibers. They will go through to the tag in a minute. And then we're gonna put a fair amount of glue on our little embellishment. You can find little images all over the place. You don't have to have a bird book. You could find bird images on the internet. You can find magazines. There's all sorts of wonderful magazines out there that have images in them. You can draw an image. I don't draw very well, so I don't try to do that myself. I usually use images from books, magazines, the internet, something like that. Now these tags are to go in my book, my new altered book called Birds and Blooms. I'm working on the videos for the book. One will be up by the time you see this. Okay, and those are our little tags with our little embellishments. And that's, let's bring this in just a little bit so you can see those a little better. And that's what I wanted to come on and show you today. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And please, if you haven't, subscribe to my channel. I will be working more on the altered book for this, that these tags are going to go into. And I hope you enjoy it. Have a great afternoon. Please go have fun, make some art, and enjoy your day.